Good evening and welcome on tonight's Magpie Circle show. We're joined by long-time friend of the show, a former Notts player and former Torquay manager, Kev Nicholson. Welcome back, Kev.
Evening. Thank you for having me on again.
Always a pleasure. Welcome to Chloe Page, one of the 550 or so who enjoyed a very nice away trip at Roots Hall. Evening, Chloe.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm glad you made it. I didn't, I'm afraid. Failed a late fitness test. The virus did me. I missed it, hoping to get down to Torquay. Topics to discuss tonight then. Reuben Rodriguez, a hat-trick hero. And I saw an excellent social media thread about Notts hat-tricks. Which one is your favourite Notts County hat-trick? Dredge the memory banks, let us know. We'll be asking all and sundry. What's your favourite ever Notts hat-trick? Kel Roberts. Okay, let's put that one to bed tonight, shall we? Update coming up very shortly, and Kev can give us a kind of a bird's eye view inside a football dressing room, and just about anything that can happen in a dressing room does. Normally it's kept in-house, but certainly I think if you read the comments of both Cal and the manager Ian Birchinall, olive branches well and truly been held out. Cal back on the training ground today ahead of the trip to Torquay. That's a game with the help of Kev we'll be previewing on Saturday. Our first visit there since the 4-2 playoff loss last season. Big Nottingham exodus. Hopefully I will pass my fitness test this time. Evening to one and all. Lots and lots of messages all coming in this evening. Nico, let's start top of the show. Kel Roberts. Okay, so Kel is a talismanic figure for us. He's been out of the side or out of the picture for a little while. Went to play for England C last week, played a full 90 minutes and then wasn't involved at all on Saturday. There have been many rumours, counter rumours on social media. I think it would be fair to say that I wouldn't say nothing happened, but then again, if you live in the bubble of a football dressing room, things are happening all of the time. The important thing, I guess, is that Ian and Cal have both kind of put respective olive branches out. We're focusing on training. I'm going to win my place back in the team. Nico, talking generally in your football career, I don't know what it was like in the Notts dressing room. I know Darren Caskey gets a few mentions from you from time to time. I mean, just about anything and everything goes on in a football dressing room, but you try and keep it all quiet, don't you?
Yeah, I think you've just used the word bubble. Being a footballer is living in a bubble. The real world doesn't often touch you. It's always different to, I think, a normal office space. I've known many footballers who, if they behaved like they did in a changing room and they went into a normal workplace, definitely wouldn't last long. It's a fascinating place to be. If you sit back and really kind of take it in, it's like a wildlife documentary. David Attenborough would he'd cringe having to go through a football league dressing room. But it's also an amazing place to be. It's the thing that most ex-footballers talk about most. That's what they miss, being in the changing room, being around the guys. They tend to miss that more than they miss playing when you speak to most ex-professional players. And yeah, I've seen plenty of crazy things going on in dressing rooms, but it's evolved over the period of even my career. When I first started, it was the first team dressing room was a place that if a young lad poked his head around the door, you might get hit by a flying boot. You really had to kind of ask permission to set foot in there. And as generations have changed and things have changed, you get to my time at Notts. It wasn't an uncommon sight or uncommon smell to have a Darren Caskey rocking up on the morning after an all-nighter. You don't get that very often now. In fact, I can't remember it happening probably since my time at Notts, because generations have changed. People look after themselves differently. Things are more acceptable or less acceptable now than what they were. But yeah, whenever I hear about stories like that, it's take everything with a pinch of salt, but there's probably something somewhere gone off. And and you try and get it back in line, especially when you're fighting for promotion or fighting against relegation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can well and truly be put to bed if we listen to Ian's comments after the game, talking about Kel getting a full training week under his belt back at Meadow Lane, and likewise Kel coming out on Sunday saying that being ill, struggling, missed a bit of training, was looking forward to fighting hard to get his place back in the team. As with all of these things, you win and it masks all sorts of things. Now, on this show last week, Chloe, and I don't know how many of us will own up to this, we were talking about Kyle Wotton, one up top, difficult, and everyone was calling for a second striker to feed off him. But to do that, how do you accommodate Reuben? And probably 80% of the people on here goes, "Oh, we should drop Reuben Rodriguez. He's been rubbish. He's been doing nothing." 3 goals later on Saturday, everyone now is of an opinion that Reuben Rodriguez is worth about £1 million again. How good was he on Saturday, Chloe? Obviously, I wasn't able to get to the game.
Yeah, I mean, wow, the goals tell you everything, don't they? All round, I put it as the perfect away performance. They had a lot of the ball, but we actually controlled the game at the same time. We scored at the right times. We actually took our chances this week. We didn't have many, but we took pretty much all of them, which is what you want to see. And obviously the penalty save, that kind of added to it. Was another kind of level to the game after that. And we then went and scored after we'd saved it. It just worked out perfectly. I saw someone in the comments saying how good Chickson was. And apart from obviously Reuben's 3 goals, he was my man of the match. So I think everybody, to be fair, got a good rating. And yeah, it was a perfect trip. Obviously it wasn't a close one again, but it made it so much easier coming home. A 4-hour journey home was much easier after we'd won. So, but yeah, as for Reuben, I mean, it's the same with Cal. All of these players are an asset. They're not going to play well every week. This is why they're National League players, really. But it's working, and where Reuben's playing obviously worked, and I'm really happy for him. Obviously, it's his first professional hat-trick, so I don't think he knew what to do with himself after he scored the third. The first 2 was kind of like bit of a big celebration. The third one, he was just kind of like, I don't really know how that went in, to be honest, his goal, but it was a perfect day out, and I'm sure he enjoyed it as well.
Indeed it was. 10 out of 12 points now from a tough run of games. Let's get a few supporter comments. Chris Gosling, evening all, great result on Saturday, better than anyone's expectations. Lee Brearley, hi all, great day Saturday. I hope we continue the run for the next several games as well. Chris Jordan says, evening all. Chris Gosling, Stephen, both IB and Kel have said there's no issue, so I think we should leave it at that and concentrate on our promotion charge. Pythagorean, buenas noches from Toledo in Spain. Hope it's a bit warmer there. Andy Walton, evening all. Kel's a great player, no room at present in the starting 11. Inspector 71, evening all. Stat of the day, Reuben has 15 league goals this season, 13 of them away from home. That's quite unusual, isn't it, Nico? Normally they get most of them at home, don't they? 13 out of 15 away from home. What does that tell you about him, if anything?
I don't know. You sometimes see those weird kind of patterns. I doubt it's got anything to do with any real logic. You could say, if you were going to try and be an amateur psychologist, you could say that he maybe plays with a little less fear away from home when he's got less likely to get some stick. But having not seen how the fans are with him and not knowing the relationship that he's got with them, it would be hard for me to say. And it is strange how you go through those, you know. In my career, I scored on something like 3 of my 7 debuts, yet I only scored 20-odd goals in my whole career. There's weird little things that pop up like that there's no rhyme or reason to. I scored on my home debut at Notts with a header. When do I ever score headers, and when did I ever really score? So there's weird things.
The Great Escape, Kev.
That one, yeah, I keep telling my kids that one. They don't believe it's me because the guy that scores it's got hair. So it's... yeah, I'm still trying to convince him that I was a player. And every time I tell the story, I get better. So, but yeah, I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to that. Sometimes I think Notts have got a very specific style. So I imagine, again, without having had the pleasure of coming up to a home game this season, I imagine a lot of teams will either sit back and let them have it or press them high. Away from home, they're going to be under more pressure because the home team is going to try and press them, which may leave more space for players like Reuben to go and exploit. So that would be my professional coaching opinion on it.
Yeah, I think that it was an interesting debate. Max Seth, well done, Max. I won't deny it. I said last week to drop Reuben. 3 goals doesn't solve everything. He needs to do it consistently now. But the debate we had last week, Nico, was that we play with basically one striker. So Kyle Wootton, the big target man, the ball comes in, he holds it up, then brings the other players in around him. And Reuben is a flair player and kind of needs to play in a fairly specific type of role, in the hole between the midfield and off the striker. And there's that little wry smile because I know, and you know, so many players say I'm played out of position, I need to play in the hole. And there aren't many clubs that actually create that niche for a player. And this was the debate we had last week because they're saying we need to help Carl Wootton. He needs a poacher on his shoulder, but you play a poacher on the shoulder. How do you accommodate Reuben in the hole? And this was the whole debate last week. So, and it's funny how things change, Yeah,
look, I think when you play the style of football that Notts try and play, you need extra players in the middle of the pitch. A 10, as they would know, or an attacking midfield player. The way people describe it now has changed, but generally every young player now wants to be a 10 because that's that fashionable role where you get to sit in the hole between the midfield and the defence. Nobody quite knows who to mark, who should be marking you, and then you get space to set goals up or score goals. I think when you're a football inside, there's a lot of trade-offs to have because if you play your 2 up front, you're either going with a 4-4-2 or you're going with a 3-5-2 or you're going with a diamond, and all of those bring their own pros and cons. I think when you are a 3-man central midfield with somebody playing off a different line, it allows better angles. It allows you to be able to go and play naturally. You're in a position to receive it without having to think too much. So I think I understand why that position has become fashionable. I played for Forest Green back in 2006. And a manager at the time called Jim Harvey was one of the first that really came around. I know football goes in cycles. I'm not saying it's the first time it's ever been done, but coming up kind of late 90s, early 2000s, everything was 4-4-2. You were slightly mad if you played 3-5-2. Jim Harvey was a 4-4-1-1. He was the first person I came across who played that guy in the hole. And it was unmarkable in those days because everybody was a rigid 4-4-2. A guy rocked up in the middle of both lines and nobody knew what to do with it. So we had a lot of success with a guy called Mark Beasley who used to play in there. And the year that I left, they brought in Stuart Fleetwood, and he thrived on having somebody who could turn in that hole, slide him in behind. He had pace and was a good finisher, and he got a £250,000 move to Charlton off the back of it. I think teams are wiser to it now, and if you play with a target man who's not as mobile up front, it can be less effective because if you're a defence, you're more comfortable to step up because you haven't got the threat in behind anymore. Yeah. So you can condense play and make it a whole lot harder to play against. So pros and cons to all of it. I like width, but I also like having 2 up front. So I either need very fit fullbacks to play in a diamond, which I personally quite like. But then you'd have people arguing that there's no flair and wing play, which everybody likes to see as well. So the beauty of football, I would say.
Yeah, interesting pros view, but you've very technically enunciated the whole debate we had last week. And there's a reason all of us on this show are fans, and there's a reason Ian Birchnell is a head coach, because it was about 93% in favour of dropping Reuben last week. Just shows you what do we all know about it. What else have we got here? Chris Gosling, when Reuben plays like that, then great. But his form going into the game wasn't great. That needs to be his benchmark for the rest of the season. Ian Birchnell Rubes has definitely silenced his critics with that hat-trick, and I was one. Now he has to keep up the scoring rate. We've missed too many chances in the game, like the Chesterfield game. Max Seth, not me, Nico. I prefer to be the crunching, tackling number 6. So not everyone wants to be in the hole. Chris Gosling.
That'll be because he's got no first touch. No offence. Max, of course.
Chris Cousin, we'd all pick the perfect team with the benefit of hindsight, and then there's quite a few hat tricks coming in, which we'll go on to in a minute. Chloe, let's get back to you. What was the mood of the fans? Away fans? Was it party time on Saturday? Because from what I could see of it, it was another game where some of our footballing purists would say we didn't play as well as normal, but we won 3-0. And to me, Southend away 3-0 is one of our top 3 away performances of the season because we got 3 points and it was a tricky game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's got to the point of the season. Some people agree, some people disagree. I really don't care how we play from now to the end of the season. If it gets us up, it gets us up. I really could not care less if we won 1-0 every week. But yeah, like you say, 3-0 away from home. It kind of made it even better that we weren't at our best. It just showed that we can be clinical, which has been kind of our problem recently. I think a lot of people maybe have shifted between the debate whether scoring or conceding was our problem for quite a while, because we've done a bit of both all season. But now we've become clinical again. Well, certainly Reuben has, and it just shows you that you take your chances in a game, and all of a sudden you're 3-0 up, and then you've got the defence playing well at the same time. We was under a lot of pressure, and I'll talk about Chickson again. Never put a foot wrong all game. Dion as well. To be fair, all of the defence played well. And then, like I say earlier, scoring at crucial times is something we haven't really done all season. Like late winners, we've not. I think I can think of one. And then scoring just after we'd saved the penalty. So it was just big decisions in crucial times. But yeah, I never thought watching the game after we'd scored one. It was one of them where you feel quietly confident. You're not sure why, because you're actually not on the ball a lot. But yeah, and like you say, it was a great atmosphere to be back. The sun was out. It kind of felt like a bit of a summer's day. It was a bit sheltered, so it was a bit cooler than that. But yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, we've all got our opinions of where we're going to finish and if we're going to get playoffs and whether we need the home or the away leg. But I think no one could fault what happened on Saturday. We've got our players coming into form right when they need to be. Carry this on for the next 10 games, he could win his promotion. So let's see how it goes. Another tough game coming up on Saturday. I think personally that's the toughest game for me from now to the end of the season. So if we can come out of that with a point, I would have 100% taken 4 points out of Southend and Torquay away. So we're 3 points already there. So grab another one and we'll be on our way.
Okay, let's talk hat-tricks then. Reuben's hat-trick obviously dominates the agenda from Saturday. So we've asked the question, your favourite hat-trick. So lots of candidates for these. Let's just rattle through a few of your favourite hat-tricks. David Shorter says Ian Avalon, I think he means Ian Scanlon, in 3 minutes versus Sheffield Wednesday, one of your former clubs, Nico. I don't even think you were born when Super Scan scored that. It was 2 minutes and 45 seconds. I was a little teenager. I think I was just about a teenager on the Cop at Notts County. 2 minutes, 45 seconds for an hat-trick, and we didn't win. Drew 3-3 in that game. Let's have a look. Who else? Jonathan Forte's away hat-trick at Charlton in League One under Curl was very exciting. Gary McSwegan hat-trick against Derby was good back in the day. Shane Walker, Trevor Christie at Leicester, first game of the season. Ian Birchnell, yeah, favourite hat-trick, Johnny Forts against Charlton. David Hunt versus Bristol City in the mid-80s. Lee Hughes, opening day of the season against Bradford City. Stefan Milek mentions Gary McSwegan against Derby. That was 1993. We won 4-1. Who else have we got here? I think that might be it in terms of the first batch. Nico, no one's mentioned your hat-trick probably on the basis you never did you ever get one in the senior pro ranks?
No, I scored many hat-tricks playing for Derby Boys district team under 12s, but unfortunately that doesn't count. So
Yeah. Can you remember a hat-trick for Notts when you were playing?
Do you know what? As you're talking now, I'm trying. Stell must have scored one when he was playing, but Stell's quite a forgettable guy. I'm sure most people on here would agree. Danny Allsop, again, I must have, but I honestly can't think of one. I genuinely cannot think of one. But maybe I'm just bitter and twisted that I didn't score one, so I've wiped everything else from my memory, because we all love to talk about ourselves and our goals, don't we? So,
Chloe, favourite hat-trick?
Not really many I can think of. Obviously, Jonathan Fort's, and then a little bit closer, Jim O'Brien's last season. Obviously, none of us were there for it, but
Jim
I've got
O'Brien got that one, yeah.
Was it Maidenhead away? I think it was.
Mm.
One of them games you wish you were there. Obviously, it's somebody that doesn't usually score. Obviously, he's had quite a bit of time out this season. But it's always nice to see someone that you don't expect to score one, never mind three. So, yeah, it's one of them days that I wish I was there for. But I think I'd have to go with Jonathan Forts for actually seeing it live.
I can't remember this one. Andy Eason, Paul Barnett bagged all three in a 3-1 win at Elm Park, Reading, in 1989. I can't remember that one. Someone remembered Brett Angel. He got a hat-trick for Notts when he was on loan here. Yeah, it's interesting, the ones. There's another one I remember. No one's mentioned it on here? No. Ian McCulloch at West Brom, when he got the flu and wasn't going to play, scored a second-half hat-trick. Notts won, I think it was 4-2 at West Brom in 1981. I was an 18-year-old student that night. And a few years after that, who would forget Rashid Harkouk? There's a name, Nico. Rashid Harkouk, quality player. He got a hat-trick in 7 minutes against Bolton. Mickey Waite hat-trick, says Pythagorean. Interestingly, a large number of these hat-tricks seem to date that only I can remember them. 80s and 90s. Yeah. Anyway, look, we'll settle for just one goal, I'm sure, on Saturday. Torquay. Down your manor, Kev. So close last year, set the pace for such a long period. This year, it's kind of, the season's been a bit inverted for them. Didn't start particularly well. Crept up a little bit. I think they've won the last couple. They lost to Halifax, didn't they? Just about doable for them to creep into the playoffs, do you think, or not?
No chance. No. I obviously got a lot of great memories, great times at Torquay. Still speak to a lot of their kind of fan base now, but I've been to several of their games this season. They've not replaced the pace that they had in the team last year, which caused so many problems, which allowed Danny Wright to be more effective because he was getting a constant delivery of balls into the box from behind rather than just lumped up for him to try and fight for. He's obviously been injured for considerable lengths of time throughout the season. They've just not replaced. I feel for them, because to miss out like they did in such circumstances at the end, it dragged the season out for an extra 4 weeks. They then had to give everybody time to decide whether they were going to re-sign with Torquay or not. You by law or by the rules, you have to give 28 days for them. They get 28 days to decide whether they're going to take the offer that they've been given. And often in that time, players go and test the water elsewhere. And with several of their better players, they obviously took the option to move on, and it left Torquay with so little time to replace what they were losing. And you can see when you watch them play, they're workmanlike. They've been, the games I've seen, they've never given up. They've worked really hard. They've put everything out there, but they're quite predictable. They're quite basic in how they play. And probably their league position now is what they should be based on that. They'll beat teams when they're not at it. They'll fight and scrap and battle with the better teams, but there are more teams that have got more quality to unlock tight games than what Torquay have this season.
Well, I guess in terms of taking players out of Torquay, Notts would, of course, be one of the principal culprits. We took 2 of the regular first-team players last season, Kyle Cameron and Aaron Namane. So Kyle Cameron, we've had him on the show. He did an hour-long podcast with us. Geordie boy, speaks very well. stuck his hand up for club captain and was given it, believe it or not. Yeah, I told the story when the manager asked who might fancy being captain, put his hand up, says, "There's me, Gaffer," and he got the job. And I think he's certainly been one of the most influential signings that we've made. He's out injured for the vast majority of the rest of the season now. Which is a blow. So he won't be playing Saturday. But is he perhaps a type of player that they've missed as well at the back?
I think so. I think he did well while he was down here. I think they've been able to replace his physicality. Maybe not from what I've seen his levels of leadership, but they've also been unfortunate with injuries. I know it's something that a lot of clubs can put out there, but they've Danny Wright as a focal point in that team is massive, and he's been out a lot and he's not been fully fit a lot, and that makes a big difference. They've got a big, strong centre-half pairing. They've got a lot of experience at the back. I think that the single biggest thing they lost, what was his name, that went from Bournemouth to Torquay to, he was going to sign for you and then didn't, went to Stockport instead. Little winger, I've gone blank on his name now. Ben Whitfield. So they lost him. He was a big loss because he could play left or right. He could cut in. He could go down the line. He had good delivery. He was a good player. And he was that X factor that can unlock a tight game. They haven't got that now. It's kind of blunt force trauma. They'll keep going. They'll never stop. But they haven't got that out and out bit of quality. They've got a lad on loan at the moment from QPR who I saw for the first time a couple of weeks ago. Double-barreled name again. Don't ask me on that one. But he's a lovely little player, technically excellent, pops up everywhere. He's just a bundle of energy. Duke McKenzie, his name is. That's a double-barreled second name, I think.
Oh, okay.
He's a nice player. He's given them a little bit of something, but they haven't got enough of it. So that's why I think they'll end up falling into where they are now. They just about make top 10, but they've not got enough. When you think about some of the players, obviously Wrexham are a bad example because they've gone out plundering the best players from League One, but they just haven't got that X factor that can break it when things are tight. And eventually, I watched them against Stockport, and they actually got a good result against Stockport, but Stockport were excellent. They've got Paddy Madden who can open up a defence. They've got one or two others that were just as good. So I think, unfortunately, this season they'll fall short, but I can see them regrouping with time this year, not being in the playoffs. And Gary Johnson's a shrewd operator. He knows the league. He knows what can get you out of it. And I've no doubt he'll go away and try and get it right that next time round.
Yeah, because the other player we took from Plainmoor was Aaron Nemane. And he's kind of suffered a bit with a few injuries. He's had limited game time. Certainly has kind of explosive pace. But again, we've not seen a massive amount of him playing for us, to be honest.
Yeah, the bits I saw last season, he was exactly what you described. He was hit and miss, but pace kills. It is the single biggest thing in football, in modern day football. Pace is what you need in some areas of the pitch, and that's it goes at every level. It's all relative. Obviously, the guys at the top are slightly quicker than those of us that knocked around League Two and the National League. But speed kills. You need it. It opens up a game. It causes defenders to drop. It opens up holes for Rodriguez to go and get in that number 10 spot that everyone wants to play and start actually causing damage. But if you haven't got that, defenders can be more brave. They can step higher. They can hold a higher line and not feel threatened. And I think every defender, as a defender that wasn't overly quick, that's my dream.
One name, I don't know what you've seen much of him this season. Max Seth has mentioned it. I really like the look of Connor Lemon Evans. What's he been like?
The bits I've seen, again, he's another one that's been in and out a little bit with injury. He's a nice technical player. They've got a lad called Armani Little as well, who is of a similar ilk. Neither of them particularly quick, neither of them overly explosive, but both of them really nice on the ball, technically gifted. But they're the guys that need the pace to be able to pick out, to cause the problems and get balls in the box for the bigger, stronger guys. And they haven't had that option like they had last year. So as much as Nemane is a bit hit and miss and and unpredictable, it's just an outlet that allows other players to get into the game that they've missed this year.
Chloe, so you've seen Southend, you've seen the other games. We've taken 10 out of 12. 8 games to go now. Seem to be cementing a place back in the playoffs when we all feared the worst. You know, when we had games in hand, we didn't take advantage of them, and it is looking like Boreham Wood are kind of hitting the buffers a little bit. Bromley, although they got to the trophy final. What would be your realistic aspirations come the end of the season after the 90th minute at Maidenhead? Where would you be happy with?
I think I'd be happy with 5th, which would give you 1 home tie out of the 2. I think like other people will have said, that top 4 is looking like they're not really dropping much. I know they've got to play each other. It's just whether we can capitalise on that. And I think that's been maybe a bit of an issue all season. Every time results have gone for us, we've not picked up the win, whether we've got a draw or whether we've lost that game. It's going to be difficult. I think I'd like to see is definitely cement a playoff place. It's not going to be easy because I think Bromley and Boreham Wood have got a few games in hand, albeit Boreham Wood are kind of dropping form a little bit. But maybe we had our dip right at the perfect time. As long as another one doesn't come, I'm quietly confident. And by having a look at kind of the other teams and who they've got to play, I think I prefer our run out of everybody's. Obviously, no game's an easy game, we know that. But if you could kind of handpick the games you'd like to play in your last 10 games, I think you won't be far off with what we've got. So we've obviously got Dover to play twice. But again, if you look at their result against Wrexham, obviously they only just lost. But if they scored 5 goals against us, I'm not sure whether we'd be able to score 6. So they're not a write-off just yet. But yeah, I think I'd like to see 5th. I'd like to see us get at least one of the home ties. That it proves for everyone how massive it is every season. I'm not sure whether we'd have beat Chesterfield away. Obviously, it's a bit different with only home fans being there last season, but I'm not too sure that result would have been the same had we played them away. Obviously, then we played Torquay away and we lost. So everywhere is a difficult place to go. And I think it's looking likely that it's going to be either Wrexham away or Halifax away. So, take your pick. But I'd like to see us get at least one of the home ties. That would be great. And if we can sneak in 4th somehow, then even better.
Who's saying what? Ian Birchman says we can do 3rd, but depends on other results, so out of our hands. Cyprus ref, ever the optimist, 8 wins, and I think 3rd is possible. We've got 8 games left, so they are 100% record between now and the end of the season. Dale Pike, it says out of the teams around us, Solihull will have 4 away games now against Halifax, Barnet, Wrexham and Stockport. We'll come to the running to wrap up the programme, but I want to get some thoughts from you from a in the game perspective, Nico. It appears certainly Wrexham skew everybody else's financial budgets at the minute with the amount of players they buy and the sums that they pay. Stockport clearly splashed a lot of cash, although to be fair to them, a lot of it was last season rather than this season. Chesterfield in the summer clearly went out and spent a lot of money. We have a periodic debate about the value of our star players, your Reuben Rodriguez, your Kel Roberts. Now, you obviously work with Exeter. And as a club, I'm sure down to you, you have a fantastic record of nurturing, developing, growing and ultimately selling on players right to the very, very top tier of the Premier League. What's your take post-COVID with your kind of League Two budgets, League One? Are the league clubs now, have they kind of like collectively decided to batten it down a bit? And are a handful of clubs in the National League bucking the trend almost? Because kind of in the National League, there's a fair bit of money sloshing around this season.
Yeah, I think certainly the first year coming out of COVID, I think a lot of clubs didn't know exactly where they stood. They didn't know what, for instance, furloughing staff, whether that had helped, hindered, or just steadied the ship. They didn't know what the long-term hit was going to be of what they've missed out on, and that kind of stuff. And I think the first season back, the general, again, it is general because there's always outliers, but the general thing would be that if you can get through that next season without getting relegated, without spending too much money, then that's a positive season. I think there was so much going on that was out of people's control that by being able to just steady the ship, get through a season, maybe sell one or two of your young players, and move on knowing where the land really lies into the next season, I think was big. This year, it's almost like, in some ways, from what I've seen, it's like COVID hasn't happened. I mean, look at the National League. In some ways, the National League seems to have more money, certainly seems to be spending more money than League Two. Maybe the fact that only one goes up automatic and the playoffs are a bizarre structure that they've got in the National League. So it's very, very, playoffs can be a lottery at the best of times, but the way it's done there, it's even more so. It's interesting hearing Chloe saying about being at home. I'd rather get into those playoffs at 7th, last minute, because if you look at how it seems to go, the teams that play at home that have just missed out on promotion because there's only one team that goes up, they've got a full house expecting the win. And I think it was last season, most of the first lot of away games, the away team won. I think it adds a whole lot of pressure when you're at home. Being that one that nicks in last minute can sometimes be of real value. But I think, budget-wise, the National League is bizarre. Stockport, Wrexham, crazy money. League Two, a lot of clubs can consolidate because they know that they've only got to finish third bottom and they're not going to go down. Can't do that in the National League either because you're at threat all the way down to fourth bottom. So there's a strange mix of stuff going on there, really. And I think if you look at one point 12 months ago, there were several clubs that seemed to be on the brink of completely going under. That seems to have steadied itself now, and now you see people spending a little bit more. So it's, I'd love to be on the real inside and see what these money men are doing and what the logic is behind it, because even if Wrexham get promoted, they have to have lost a huge amount of money doing it. Similar with Stockport, without really knowing what they've paid and who they've paid, because rumours are flying around left, right and centre. But it's the dream of league football. And when you've got Hollywood behind you, I suppose, for them, it's you can have a go and not worry too much about the finances.
There's an interesting comment. Gary Wardle says Stockport's best buy was Challoner. Would you agree with that or not?
I wouldn't disagree. Proven record on the up as a manager. Big thing to leave Hartlepool in the league and go back down. They must have sold him the dream in terms of the bigger picture, the finances, the budget, what he's got to work with. But he's gone in there. Like I say, they're one of the teams I've seen this season, and they were excellent. The way they moved the ball, they were brave. They were brave to play, but they were also playing with a purpose. They weren't passing it around the back for the sake of passing it around the back. It was up through lines. It was into Madden. Madden is clever. The way he uses the ball, the way he brings other people into play. They had a nice mix of pace, experience, and youth. I could see why they are where they are now. And they didn't actually win the game against Torquay. For half an hour, it looked like it was going to be about 4-5-0, and then Torquay kind of reined them in and could have nicked it. So yeah, it's a bizarre league. These kind of conversations are always fascinating because you say what you want and have half a chance of getting it right. It's that mad.
Yeah, you see, there's a few people on our message boards. I'm not sure whether you're tuned into our message section on here. You see, I have an aversion to people that say playoffs are a lottery. You see, I don't think they are. You see, Dave Challoner won the playoffs last year, didn't he? With Hartlepool. Now, would you say that was luck? Or would you say that's because Dave Challoner's an exceptional manager? No,
don't get me wrong. I don't believe that. I argue a lot with players. I don't think there's any such thing as luck in football. I think you can. So there's a debate for you on another day. So I think I would challenge anybody on here to tell me anything that happens in a game of football that is luck. Because you could say, well, what happens if someone hits one from 30 yards, it hits the bar, hits the back of the keeper's head and goes in? Well, you should have stopped the shot. And if you didn't stop the shot, you should have stopped the pass to the guy that shot. So there's always a reason. So these teams that get lucky, they're not lucky. They've just worked harder, are better drilled, have a better understanding, better timing, whatever it might be. So I think you can trace everything back. So luck has got nothing to do with it. But there is such a thing as pressure that can affect that when you get into the lottery. So when people talk about, into the playoffs, when they talk about it being a lottery, we did it at Torquay when we got into the League Two playoffs. We snuck in last day. So the next team we played, I think, was Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury had just missed out on automatic promotion. Their momentum had gone. Their heads were down. They weren't happy to be in the playoffs. We were. So overall, the period of the season, they were a better team. They got more points than us. But we knocked them out without too much of a problem because we were on the up and we felt like we had nothing to lose. So I don't think there's luck in football, but I think momentum, I think pressure, I think expectation can affect a good team and a good player in a way that it's not luck, but it turns it into a lottery after the period of a 46-game season.
Yeah. I mean, I think the principle or the point of what Gary was trying to say, I mean, I'm a big believer that the single most important person at a football club is the manager. You know, because if you look at Stockport and where they were, they came to us and we beat them easily. And they'd already spent a lot of money by then. You know, Madden was there and Rooney and all of that. And we beat them very easily and they didn't look a very good team. But Challoner has clearly gone in and his run of results is remarkable, really. And it's not because they've spent another £3 million since he's gone in. They already had good players and weren't doing it before he was there.
Well, so it was Rusk, wasn't it, that was in there before him? Now, I know a little bit about Rusk. Rusk is an excellent coach. The thing for me is, I think in some ways Challoner would have been rubbing his hands going in there because I imagine they were a well-coached team before that. But even a well-coached team needs time to get the understanding and the timing and the shape and the tactic and all the stuff that coaches and managers will talk about. You don't get that overnight. It takes months for them to truly understand exactly what. So if you watch Stockport play now, it's fluid. It's timed perfectly. Madden knows when to drop. The back players know when to drop it into him. The midfield players know when to come off the back of their players so they can receive it off Madden. It's fluid. It's proper. Now, that hasn't come about just because Challoner's gone in there. They were playing in a similar style before he went in. So they were coached in the right way. He picked up a team that was gelling with good players in it, gave them his take on what that might look like, and they've picked it up. So I think sometimes that can happen quicker than others. But, I mean, if Exeter can give a lesson to any football teams out there, they give the manager time to instill the what is important in the way that manager wants to play. You know, if you give a manager time and he's got anything about him, he'll probably do well. If you give him just money, he's relying on things to go his way quickly with those players that he signed, and it's easy to sign a player that you didn't realise was maybe the wrong character. If you give a manager time and money, well, he better get promoted. Otherwise, he's an idiot.
Chloe, you're back.
Yes, sorry. We've had problems with our Wi-Fi. So if it goes again, I'm on my phone at the minute.
Yeah, because you're actually in Stockport, aren't you, at the minute?
Wow, it's just outside. So it's kind of straight between Manchester City Centre and Stockport. So we're halfway in between. But yeah, so we've moved house. So Wi-Fi problems and the rest of it.
Very good. Well, we've been chatting Challoner, Stockport, importance of the manager. Now you're not going to be there Saturday, are you? You're not making the trip down to Torquay?
No, can't make this one.
Oh dear, never mind. What else are you looking for between now and the end of the season? More of the same?
Yeah. Like I say, points to me is all that matters at the minute. Winning games gets you the momentum. Obviously, playing well helps that. But confidence is up, especially when you've got kind of people scoring again. Maybe this has been Reuben's problem. He hasn't got many goals as of recently. So is this going to kind of now push him on? He's got, 8 games to go until playoffs. Less goals going in. It's easy to say more goals scored, less going in, and you're gonna secure yourself playoffs. But most important for me is that home form. Keep that up, keep fans' morale up, and then obviously picking up a point away sometimes isn't enough until the end of the season. It really does depend on not only ourselves but how other results go. I think we can secure ourselves playoffs by doing the best that we can, but kind of your position is really going to depend on other people at the minute. So if we can keep that home form up and then nick a couple of away wins, we'll be absolutely fine, I think. I think Watton could do with scoring another couple as well to get us in there, but yeah, we'll be all right.
I mean, you mentioned about home versus away, Nico, earlier. I think part of the real desire among Notts fans to finish higher up the table and get the advantage of a home leg is because for much of this season we've not been great away. So up till 2 or 3 weeks ago, we only won 5 of our 15 away games. We have now won 2, Dagenham and Southend, and shown perhaps resilience, not always an adjective you would use for our teams this year. So I think that's kind of why you might detect us being really paranoid almost about we've got to be at home. We've got to be at home. After Torquay, we kind of then have last 6-7 games. Chloe's mentioned it, Dover twice, Kings Lynn, Aldershot, Maidenhead, can't quite remember 1 or 2 of the others. On paper, right? These are clubs that are not going to be trouble in playoffs. And given the way the league table is, they're either down, or they're definitely not going to go down. As a manager, is that a dream set of fixtures or not?
No, I don't think it is, because often with those teams, Chloe talked about Dover at Wrexham, they've got nothing to lose. They've got nothing to lose. They can play with freedom, and players that have maybe underachieved or teams that have underachieved throughout the season can just leave it all out there. It's harder to prepare for. If you could go and watch, I've not seen Wrexham play this season, but I could go and watch their next 3 games, and you could put together a game plan based on strengths and weaknesses, opportunities, their threats, that kind of stuff. They need to win. They'll be thinking, I want a home game, because they get 9,000 at home most weeks now. That'll be their plan. So you can play on that. You can put something together for that. These teams that are mid-table, the players, half of them will be thinking about the beach and where they're going on holiday. They'll be thinking about the next contract. They'll be thinking about, some of them will be thinking about the next club. It can have a massive sway and a massive array of effects on any given team or player, for better or worse. That's why you see so many weird results at this time of year. Dover scoring 5 at Wrexham. Come on, it's madness, but why not? Nothing to lose. Easy team talk. Ryan Reynolds is in the stand. Go on, fellas, go and have a crack at it. And they did, and fair play to them. They nearly got something. So it's not, this whole thing on paper is never as clear cut as what you think it is. My personal philosophy, how I'd like my teams to be, and how I have liked my teams to be, is I don't care what the game after the next game is. I'm just bothered about what's coming. I'm bothered about training tomorrow, because that's the next chance I've got of actually improving and getting ready for what is coming. I'm bothered about how my players, what time they go to bed, what they eat when they get up, how well prepared they are any given day. I don't care if we've got Maidenhead on the last day of the season and they're on the beach, and I don't care we've got Dover twice. I'm bothered about Torquay and what I can do to affect that result and that game.
It's interesting because you're the professional, we're all the amateurs, and there's a whole raft of comments coming in, as you're saying, I'd much rather have our 7 than anybody else's run in and all the rest of it. If we can't beat Dover, Weymouth and Kingston, then we don't deserve to go up. And it's interesting how fans interpret things in a different way, because it's only 3-4 weeks ago where we had a cross-section of our fans were saying, well, yeah, let's just get through the next 4 or 5 games. We don't need to get too many points, but then we'll be fine for the last 7 games. The reality is, in the last 4 games, all against promotion playoff rivals, we took 10 points out of 12. And like most of us go, we get a couple of draws, win 1, we'll be happy with that. And so it's funny that kind of what you're saying there is kind of exactly how things have panned out in the first part of these set of fixtures.
That's the beauty of football, is that it excites fans to look at what could be. You know, as a player, before I matured as a player, probably had some bad experiences because of it, that type of stuff. I used to look at the fixture list when it came out, and I'd look at first game of the season, I'd look at Boxing Day, New Year's Day, last game of the season. Why? Well, I can't. It's July, and I'm thinking about what we're going to play at Christmas. I've got no bearing right now on what that might look like, or if the same manager will be in, or if I'll be playing or in the team. What I can affect and what I can really focus on is the very next thing that I do. So as a professional athlete, it's for the fans to have these debates, and it's for the fans to get excited about these things, and rightly so, because it's great talk on a show like this. It's great down the pub. It's great to get excited about what might be. But for a professional sportsman, if you're thinking about anything except the very next thing you can affect, you're killing yourself, because you're taking your eye off what you can do well to concentrate on stuff that hasn't happened yet and you can't do anything about. So that would be, you know, a daily thing for me, is you just concentrate on what you can do best next, and the rest that'll add up. And then that process will lead to wins or not, depending on how good you are. But don't worry about 3 games down the line. Just try and beat Torquay, and we'll see where you go from there.
Yeah, it's a very interesting way you enunciate it as a professional in the game, has played the game and managed in the game, looking at it that way compared to all our followers. As you just said, they're all fans, but we view it totally differently. We view it totally different, don't we, Chloe?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I mean, I think it'll be very interesting. Our last, is it 6 or 7 games against all the bottom 6, 7 teams? How many points? Okay, all of you now. How many points are we going to get from those last 7 games after Torquay? Stick them down. The range between 18 and 21, and then let's take a look at the end of the season. Right, Nico, gazing into your crystal ball, okay? Clearly, Stockport's going to win the league. Yeah, you don't see anyone stopping them.
No.
Okay, well that's that one done.
No debate. I don't think that.
Right. Okay. As predicted, here we go. Ian Birchnell, 21 out of 7. We're going to win all 7. Chris Jordan, 19. So we're going to win 6 and draw 1. Aaron Porter, 21. Jurgen Halligan, 19. Stephen Newton, 18. Chris Gosling, 19. John Parr, 18. Shane Walker, 18. There you go. Hey, I would point out, Nico, as someone, I'm more realistic fans, we've not won more than 4 games on the trot all season, but we are conveniently ignoring that for the last 7 games.
Perfect timing. Well, that's definitely the right time to go on the 21-point spree at this point.
Isn't it just? Hang on, there's more. Oh, Steph Milek, 15. That's a bit low, isn't it? Shane Walker, 18. John Parr, 18. Cyprus Ref, 21. Gary Wardle, 17 or 19. Keith Cook, 18 for me. Crikey, we're all bloody... we're all expected to completely destroy the likes of Dover and whatever. Playoffs. Hopefully we'll be part of them, Kev. The fact Wrexham spent the dosh, they've got the experienced players. Clearly they're going to be in the playoff mix. Does that make it hard for you to look beyond them in the playoffs, or do you think that could, in a way, be counterproductive? Because clearly, the moment Wrexham go into a playoff campaign, they are the focus of everything, aren't they, from the media?
Yeah, again, it's the conversation we've just had. They seem to have timed things right from the outside looking in. They've gone on a good run. Managers just got manager of the month, that kind of stuff. The fact of the matter is that they have got some of, if not the best players in the league. So if those best players do what they're capable of doing and put it into some kind of team concept, they should win the playoffs, with all due respect to the other teams that may get in there. It just doesn't work like that, because they might know they're the best players, and it would go back to what we've just been saying. If they're thinking about the playoff final and who we're going to beat in the playoff final, then one of these teams that sneaks in later down the line will be going into it with nothing to lose and full on aggressive. So I think, if I was a betting man, they would be the guys I would go for, but that's based purely on individual players and knowing that they've got probably the best group of individual players that going into the playoffs at this point. Doesn't work like that.
Is there a type of style that's suited to playoffs or not, or is it purely down to manager and players? I was going to do a Michael Owen kind of quote there about the type of style that the team that scores more and doesn't let any in is the best style. I think I'm loath to say it because I know how Notts play. Yeah,
playing total football in the playoffs when the pressure's on is difficult. You deserve it if you go up. You will get better pitches because the time of the year will allow for that. And unless something's been completely stripped of grass and you're playing on one of those ploughed fields that you come across from time to time. But looking at the teams that are in the playoffs, you're going to get better weather, good ground, good pitch. It will be there to play football. But when the pressure's on, those simple passes become that little bit more difficult. And so if you are a team that is well-oiled and plays most of your possession football in the opposition's half, you're probably in a better spot than those that are trying to build from the back all the way. But I've got a huge amount of respect for those teams that do go that way and stick to that philosophy and have a go at it. But it's harder.
Chloe, we're obviously all counting chickens here in terms of playoff campaigns and all the rest of it. Do you anticipate us to finish very strongly given the set of fixtures, or what's your take? Because I'm not so sure we're going to win. I'll have a bet with people that we win a maximum of 5 of the last 7. Maximum.
Yeah,
I'm with Nico anyway. I'm not quite sure it always works. You look and you collectively say, well, we're better than them, and we're about to beat them. And, in the way that very few fans would have said we would have taken 10 points out of our last 4 games. Very few. Very few.
Absolutely. And even 5's quite optimistic. But you got to see we are in good form. So many different aspects. We could pick up 3 injuries between now and the playoffs, and anything can happen. I'd like to see, like you say, to win 5 would be great. I think the 2 that stand out to me are maybe the Aldershot and Torquay away games. Obviously, Maidenhead away is not easy last game of the season, especially if something's riding on it, maybe kind of a position in the playoffs. We've seen teams go there this season and they've been the kind of out there team that's gone and got results against kind of the top 6, 7, 8 sides. So we can't write anyone off, and results come out of nowhere. But I think if you do want to get into the playoffs, you've got to be the informed team wherever you finish. So as long as we can keep informed, hopefully not lose a game would be massive. And then it's difficult. So there's a lot of teams that also have a very similar, fiery players and all different kinds of players. So different styles of play, managers that have kind of won promotion, managers that haven't. Obviously, this is Ian's first time, first full season in this league. Like anything could happen, but like you say, I'd like to see us win them 5 again. Hugely optimistic, which would mean however many in a row that you expect us to win. Like you say, we haven't done 4 all season, so yeah, to not lose is what I'd like to see, and give it a real good go in the playoffs.
Nico, one thing we haven't mentioned: FA Trophy final. So Wrexham beat Stockport, Bromley beat York, and it's quite a weird set of fixtures with the way the National League have had to try and cram things in with playoffs and everything else. So I think I'm right in saying this, that the trophy final is the week after the final game of the season. Then come the playoffs, which I suppose from Wrexham's perspective isn't the end of the world, because you will be working on the basis here would be second or third. Does being in the trophy final have any bearing or affect things from a point of view of you finish the season, you're clearly looking at going up, and you've got a trophy final? Is that good, bad, doesn't make a difference?
I'd take it. Keeps your players motivated. You're fighting for a place at Wembley twice. I think National League players, you're lucky if you get to go to Wembley once, never mind twice in a season. So I think I would see that as a positive. But I go back to my previous things. If they get carried away thinking about, well, we've got Wembley no matter what, and they forget to do the business that they need to do beforehand and get ready for what's coming, then they'll slip up. So it's totally on the mentality of the players, the mentality of the management, whether it's a siege mentality or just an overly positive mentality, whatever it is. But I would see it as a positive, but I would see it as a next game, and I would see it as something that I can't affect right now.
One final question, because obviously you're at a League Two club with Exeter. And we had Mark Ives, who's the General Secretary of the National League, managed to get him on the show at a full hour, because we had all sorts of problems with postponements at Dover and God knows what this year. And to be fair, he agreed to come on, and asked, he had some tough questions. I thought he equipped himself reasonably well. And one of the points we debated was only one automatic. Yeah. And I asked the question, how feasible, if at all, is it that you will get a total of 3 teams, i.e. 2 automatic and 1 through playoffs, to go into the Football League? And he said, oh, it's very feasible. And I said, oh, what was it then? A long-term aim, right? And he said, no, it's a short to medium-term aim, and that discussions are already underway with the Football League. Now, clearly, if you're the National League General Secretary, it sounds good. But nevertheless, it attracted quite a lot of attention. You work for a League Two club. You're obviously on a different side sat on a different side of the fence. I don't know whether there will be a collective view from Exeter on it, or would you foresee a time when it is feasible or possible that the National League gets an extra place?
I've always thought they should, because I think there's probably 10 teams in the National League that would have a chance of staying up and then building if they got into the Football League. But my understanding is that for that to happen, the Football League teams have actually got to vote in favour of it.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to be slightly mad if you're going to vote yourself into a position where you have one bad season and get yourself relegated. So if that's the case, I cannot. I mean, I like to think that I'm an honest, straight down the line kind of guy, but if you're going to vote to put yourself under vast amounts of pressure, you're not talking just relegation when you go out of the Football League. You're talking about loss of funding for academies. You're talking about jobs being lost. You're talking about a complete overhaul of the club if you don't get back up within 2 years. So you would not vote that through unless, I don't know what's your motivation. Why would you do it? Not, I'm all about reasonable behaviours and fairness and so on, but you'd be crazy to do it. You'd be putting loads of other people's livelihoods at risk when you don't have to. So I can't see, as much as it sounds great and as much as I think it's fair, I cannot see it happening.
I wouldn't disagree a word with that. Exeter are a team that have dropped out the Football League and come back, though.
Yeah, they don't want to drop out again.
Yeah. I mean, the only way I could ever foresee it is if you've got some slick marketing and commercial guys who can demonstrate that by adding an extra, possibly can you rebrand it and get an extra division into the EFL? Yeah. And get a bigger TV deal that then say, if you add all this up, clubs, you're going to be 50 grand a year better off if we do it like this and take the top 14 teams out of the National League, and the National League almost then becomes semi-professional. That's the only way I could ever see it happening.
Somebody somewhere loses out on money. And when it comes to money in football, people are not going to vote things through from the kindness of their heart, because again, it's jobs.
My point. You'd have to, a slick commercial or marketing guy would have to come up with a deal that principally would be television related, yeah, where they could demonstrate to League One and League Two clubs you're actually getting more money, yeah, the sum of the parts by incrementing the 12, 14 teams from the top end of the National League. It's the only way I could see you doing it, because money does talk.
The higher you got the leagues, the more power these teams have got. The Premier League, obviously, the all-powerful. Anything that results, and unless you're going to come up with a pot of money from somewhere else, but even then they're going to have their eyes on it and what they can get from it because of how important it is to them in their context. So I would find it very hard to imagine that money will arrive from somewhere and a slick marketing manager will manage to convince people that it's in their interest to expand this, that and the other, when everybody hunkers down with what's theirs and just, that's the way of the world, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I find it hard to disagree with you, and I think we're probably stuck with it for a while. Let's just hope we can get out of the damn thing. How long did it take? It took Exeter several years to get out, didn't it?
I don't know. I was playing at Torquay when they beat us the year
years.
they went up, and then Torquay went up the following year. So it's a long, hard road to get out of there. But when you do, generally speaking, you don't see many teams going back down for a little while. So
no,
it's get yourself up there. It's a fun place to be.
Righty ho. I think that concludes our show tonight. I'm wilting. I'm going to bed in a minute. I need to try and recover to get down to some Riviera sunshine. Chloe, thank you very much indeed for tonight.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
All righty. Enjoy the rest of the week in Stockport. We will catch up with you soon. Nico, thank you very much as always. May catch up with you down in Devon. We shall see later this week. Thank you to one and all for joining in tonight. Let's hope we can continue winning ways at Torquay on Saturday. Thank you again. Take care for now. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Paul.